So the kids and I are alone in Peru in a little known town on our way to the city center where we're going to get dropped off. But I had kind of a funny feeling about the driver. It was just one of those feelings. You kind of go into mama bear protective mode. So I did the one thing that I knew how to do, fake a phone call to my dead husband. I didn't tell the kids in advance, so the look on their face was sort of surprised, even though I was trying to give them the eyes like, shh. I made that fake phone call so the driver would know that somebody was going to be there waiting for us and knew exactly what time to expect us. After years of traveling, there are a bunch of things like this that I have learned through trial and error and just experience, and I'm really glad to have this platform to be able to share them with you, because when you're traveling alone with your kids, safety is on top of mind all the time, and I hear from a lot of you that safety is your number one concern when you go, or thing that's maybe preventing you from going in the first place. I've put together a safety checklist for widows traveling with their kids. You can grab it in the link below. It is a full comprehensive list of all the things that I've learned to make sure that you're safe while you're out there and also in preparation for leaving. So you can print that out, read it through, have it when you're preparing, and I think it will really help you feel more confident as you head out into the world as a solo parent traveling with your kids. So my goal for you by the end of this video is to feel really prepared and like you have done everything you could possibly do to feel safe heading out into the world. Obviously, we can't control unforeseen circumstances, but you can be as prepared as possible. And just quickly, because we have a lot to get through, I just want to say that you should feel very proud of yourself for getting to this point where you're considering traveling alone with your kids. It's a huge hurdle, or maybe it wasn't for you, but going out there alone with your kids is a unique experience and not everybody would be willing to do it. So pat yourself on the back because you're doing something awesome. And then last thing before we get into it, remember, if you're not totally ready to travel alone with your kids, it's a really good idea to travel in groups with family members, with friends, in travel communities. I run a travel community with my friend Dana Frost. It's called Widows in the Wild. We host group trips for widowed women who are looking just to travel around the world. They're not really retreats, they're just an opportunity to travel with other widows who totally get it, and they're kind of magical. And then we're also hosting trips for moms and their kids around the world. So far we've been to Guatemala twice and are headed to Peru, and we hope to expand that program as well. You can check that out at widowstravel.com if you are looking for more of a group travel experience. We're going to start by talking about some of the things that you need to think about before you actually travel. The first, and what I would say is the most important, is to get your documents together. Once you have your documents actually physically in hand, we're talking about a passport, and sadly, you need your kid's other parent's death certificate. And while I've never actually encountered a situation where I've been asked for it, it could happen, especially if you're crossing borders in any way, that the Border Patrol agents just want to know that you actually have the ability to take these children from one place to another and that you are the sole decision maker in their life. I also find it's a good idea to bring the kids' birth certificates, and then if you were married to your children's other parent, that you also bring the marriage certificate to kind of prove the connection between all of you. And before you go, what I would do is I would take a photo of each one of those documents just in case, God forbid, you were to lose luggage with them inside or a backpack, that you have a backup copy. Now, when you take a picture of your passport, of course you want the page that has the photo and all the information and the passport number on it, but you also want a picture of the very back page. There is a scannable code on the bottom of that page. If you are going to get a passport replacement, you're also going to need that, so make sure you take a picture of the photo page and the very back page. The next thing I do is I create a document that has all of our itinerary, where we're staying, flights we're taking, with someone that I know and love. This way I feel very confident at every point along the way. Somebody just knows exactly where we are. It gives me a little internal confidence, and I think it gives my family members or my friend who I'm sharing it with some confidence as well, that they can pinpoint exactly where we are in the world. It's also always a good idea to register with the US Embassy where you'll be going. It's just another preventative measure just to make sure that your location is documented should anything happen. Now, when you're actually in another place, whether it's within your home country or you have traveled to another country, it is really important that you have cell phone access. There are many routes you can take to do this. You can get an eSIM, you can get a local SIM card, or you can just choose the international plan through your cell service provider. But I would have a very clear plan for how you're going to get cell service as soon as you arrive. Not every airport around the world is going to have the best Wi-Fi, and you're going to need your phone as soon as you land. Now, wherever it is that you're traveling, it's a very good idea to somehow make sure your kids know where you're staying. If your kids are little, maybe that's a note card that goes inside of a pocket or inside of their shoe that has the name of the hotel or your cell phone number. There should be some way to identify how to get a hold of you and how to get them back to where they're staying, or how they can get themselves back to where you're staying if they're old enough. In addition, be sure to always have a plan with your kids for how you're going to reunite if you were to get separated in any situation. I also like to put a little note in my phone that has the emergency phone number in that area, so it's not 911 all over the place. So when I arrive in a country, I look up quickly, what is the emergency phone number here? How do I contact them if need be? I put it in a note in my phone, and then I know exactly where it is, and I show my kids how to access that just in case. And then one just small little packing tip is to pack a small first aid kit. So Band-Aids, wipes, just the basics. So when minor things happen along the way, you're prepared. You don't need an entire first aid kit that's going to cover every situation, maybe little medications your kids take or need on a regular basis, but pretty much anywhere you are in the world, you're going to be able to buy medications unless you're going super duper remote, in which case I'm sure you're going to have a nice solid packing list anyway. One of the biggest questions that comes up when we travel internationally with Widows in the Wild is how to handle money. There are some logistical things, and then there are some safety things. Logistically, what I tend to recommend is using an ATM at the airport to get out a very small amount of cash, because the fee is going to generally be pretty high. But if you feel like you need cash right when you arrive, that's a good idea. Of course, you can always order currency from your bank in advance if you prefer, but I just like using the ATM at the airport. I find it easier. I also tend to bring a few $100s in cash that I could bring to a currency exchange and change the money over to the local currency if I find myself needing more cash. But these days, unless you're going to very small towns, most places and most types of vendors are taking credit cards. Speaking of credit cards, it is really important that you have both a credit card and a debit card when you're traveling. Sometimes you need a credit card to hold reservations. So if you're renting a car, you're booking a hotel room, they might not accept a debit card. Sometimes they really just want a credit card. That being said, it's important to have a debit card in case you need to take out more cash. So always carry one of each with you. And that cash, you're going to want to divide up into different bags. So I always keep some in my backpack, some in my carry-on, some in my fanny pack. That way, if one of those things were to get lost or stolen, I wouldn't be in a total emergency. And speaking of those different bags, I like to put an air tag into my luggage, sometimes into my backpack, sometimes on my children. It's just a good way to keep track of where things are and to have some peace of mind that my things are where they're supposed to be. And then last thing on valuables is jewelry. I would just highly recommend any jewelry, whether it's fancy, costume jewelry, or real jewelry, would stay back home. Wearing any sort of big flashy jewelry could make you a target, and you definitely don't want to be that. So that transitions us perfectly into safety in public places when you're in large crowds. When I am in a large crowd alone with my kids, I am on very high alert. Number one, I always have my eyes on them. I'm keeping them very close to me, and I am highly aware of everyone who is around me. As much as possible, I try to stay off of my phone. I know it's difficult because often you're using your phone for navigation, for buying tickets for things, for figuring out lots of different things like where to eat, where to go, what to do. But as much as possible, step aside, figure out what you need to, and then continue on, because having your phone out and being distracted, again, could make you a target. The other thing I'm highly aware of in large crowds is being mindful for pickpocketers. So I never, ever wear a backpack in large crowds. And I know you're probably thinking, but I have a bunch of stuff to carry, especially if I'm with my kids by myself. What am I supposed to do? There's a couple options. One is you can have a backpack and just put nothing valuable in there. So if it gets swiped or cut or something, you wouldn't be losing anything critical. Now, I'm not saying these things to scare you, but these things do happen. And so I just want you to be mindful so that you can take all the precautions possible. The other option, if you absolutely need a backpack, is to actually wear it on the front. You'll see this happening a lot with locals in very busy areas like India, where they will wear it in front of them because now you can actually see it and you can protect it with your hands. Yes, you might feel a little dorky, but it's fine. Just wear the backpack on the front. My favorite option actually is to travel as light as possible, to not wear a backpack at all. Instead, I usually use my fanny pack and I stick it right under my arm over my shoulder so that my arm is protecting it, and I have it on my person. I know exactly where it is, and it wouldn't be easy for anybody to just grab. A couple more ideas about making sure that you're not really a target. One is to dress in a way that's culturally appropriate. I'm not trying to tell you to not be yourself or limit your personal expression or anything, but if you are going to a culture that is outside of your own, it's a really good idea to try to blend in as much as possible. So if you're going to a place where the women typically wear longer dresses or cover their shoulders, as much as possible, try to wear things that are similar. You're already going to stick out as a tourist. Since you are actually alone with your children, it's a good idea to blend in as much as possible. Whether that means buying a few things while you're there or dressing a little more modestly, I would highly recommend it. And you can pretty much assume most places in the world, aside from some places in Europe and maybe Brazil, are going to be more modest than the United States. So if you're coming from the US, I would say bring a few items that will cover your skin more than you would typically. And then the last thing is just to try to avoid drawing attention to the fact that you're alone. So whether that's sitting near other people in the park, staying in well-lit, busier areas, avoiding walking on empty streets at night, that sort of thing. Again, you're just trying to avoid standing out as a solo parent alone with their children. Okay, the last big thing on the list is transportation safety. And again, I know we've gone through a lot of things. This whole list is printable and has a checklist in the link below, so go ahead and grab that, print it out. That way you will just have it and not have to watch this video over and over again. Okay, when I am in any sort of major transportation hub, like an airport or a train station, as much as possible, I try to find the family restrooms. I have a daughter and a son, and that means if we're going to the bathroom, my son generally has to go in by himself, which doesn't always make me feel super comfortable, especially when he was younger. When I can find a family bathroom, I always choose it. I know a lot of people like to save those for people with young kids, but as a solo parent traveling with their kids, that bathroom is absolutely for you. So you can sometimes look these things up in advance, especially in airports or major train stations, so just something good to keep in mind. When it comes to taxis, if Uber is an option in a country, I tend to take it because I feel like there's a really good review system. I can read the reviews on the driver. There is a check system where I make sure he knows my name, I know his name, I make sure the license plate match before I get in the car. I go through all of those things to make sure that we are safely in the hands of a driver that is working under a larger system. If I'm in a place that doesn't use Uber, I do a couple things. One, I try to research the rate of where we're going and how much it should typically cost. Let's say I need to take a taxi from the airport to the hotel. I will Google what is the typical taxi fare from X airport to Y hotel and have that in mind. Then when a taxi comes to pick us up, before I actually get in, I will have the taxi driver roll down the window and I will ask, how much will it cost to get to this place? If it seems close or reasonable to what I was expecting, then we go in. I also always make sure that the taxi has a number or some sort of verification that they are a registered taxi driver. And then finally in taxis, what I do is I pull up the Google map on my phone, and I don't like announce it or anything. I just have it for myself, and I track along with the route to make sure that the driver is taking a route that is totally expected via Google Maps. I just want to make sure we're not veering off or going somewhere weird, because at any point, if that were to happen, I could ask the driver to pull over and stop and get out of the car. Thankfully, we've never encountered that situation. We've always gotten exactly where we were supposed to be, but it's just a nice little safety net. Okay, back to the story at the very beginning of the video. There was that one time where I didn't feel super comfortable in the car with the driver, and we were on the highway and I didn't feel like we could just get out there. So in that scenario, I couldn't see the taxi driver's GPS. And so what I did is I asked him, what time do you think we're going to arrive? My husband is asking. My kids both looked at me very confused because their dad had since passed. And I just kind of gave them like a shh. He gave me a time estimate, and then I made that fake phone call like, hey babe, the driver said we're going to be there in 15 minutes. Do you want to come down and meet us at the car, or should we just come in and meet you inside? And then I had sort of a pretend conversation, and I felt better knowing that the taxi driver knew somebody was expecting us. I think one of the big things I've learned, especially as somebody who loves to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and assume the best in humanity, is that it is appropriate to have a certain level of skepticism when you're out traveling about people you interact with. You have to be safe for yourself and your kids, and so that doesn't always mean being the most polite. Sometimes it just means taking the steps that are going to ensure you get to where you're going safely and securely. So did I tell a little white lie in front of the kids? Yes, but it really made me feel better matter whether or not it was necessary. I don't really know. But at the end of the day, we got to where we were going. When you're traveling alone with your kids, it is really an amazing experience. The bonding, the activities, the cultures, the ability to add joyful experiences to your memories and to your life. I couldn't recommend it more. But I also know that you will be on high alert and thinking about these safety things the entire time too. If I have forgotten anything, please leave it below in the comments. I would love to hear. Even add it to the checklist. If you haven't yet grabbed the checklist, the link is down below. Make sure you do that. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. I am going to be sharing as much travel information for fellow widows that I can. I love doing this and working with this community, and I will see you next week.